welcome to the Ease of Business podcast for the enlightened entrepreneur, hosted by Lisa Schermerhorn and Celeste Hartwell. Here is where we help disruptors gain clarity on how to make a bigger impact while living a life of abundance through reading amazing books that have helped us in business. Thanks so much for joining us, and let's get into it. Welcome. My name is Celeste Hartwell, and I am so excited to be with my amazing co-host, Lisa Schermerhorn, this evening as we talk about Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Gikandi. So welcome, Lisa. How are you?
I am awesome, and I want to thank you so much for recommending this book because at first I was like, "Happy Pocket Full of Money, what is that?" But it's not. I believe that they probably could have come up with a better title because the depth of information that is in this book, it's not even really about money. It's a very small part of it, but as we spoke before, it's really about everything that we have been studying for so long in a very concise manner, placed in this rich
Yeah.
book
Yes.
that's just endless with wisdom.
It's super chock full of amazing goodness. So for anyone who has never heard of this book, welcome. If you decide to read this, I'm going to promise you need to listen or read it multiple times. I was telling Lisa before we started this evening, this book really the reason why I was so called to read this book and not read it, but share it in this platform and share it with Lisa was that this particular book kind of quantifies everything that I've learned on my spiritual path and on my entrepreneurial journey in regards to spirituality, money, the universe, how the universe works with you, and quantum physics. And it does it in such an easy to understand, digestible format. Wouldn't you agree, Lisa?
You know what? It's so amazing because I started reading, if anyone has ever studied quantum physics, 20 years ago, someone handed me a book by Larry Dossey all about quantum physics and the field and how it worked. And I remember going, I can't believe that I have to get through this information. It was so dense and so difficult to understand, and I really struggled with it. And what happened was this book, I mean, I over the years, I don't know that I'll ever completely 100% understand it. It's it's hard to wrap your brain around it. You really have to look at it over and over and
I
over
was
again.
gonna say, I don't think that the brain is meant to understand it, right?
Yeah,
When we're talking about quantum physics, it's similar to spirituality and faith. You kind
right.
of just you get enough of it to understand. And then what I liked about the way they talked about it in this book is and you don't have to know how it really works. You just have to
Right.
know the basics, right?
Right. And so he talks a lot about it to give people an understanding of how we're all connected and how our thoughts work and how powerful our thoughts are. Um, what I for what I invite you people who decide to actually read this book is if you're not into quantum physics, I advise you to just get through that part because there's so much more to the book. He does a really good job explaining it, but as you continue the way he relates everything to it, it's just really done very, very well.
Yeah, so we'll get into some details because, girl, I got it in front of me. But I, the other thing that I wanted to say is that because I've heard this from different people, I don't own the physical copy. So just to preface that, I absorbed this on Audible. I
Me
actually
too.
listen to it every single day, like a little bit of it, not the whole thing. Clearly, it's long, but um what I have heard from people is that the physical copy is actually different. I think there's more in the Audible copy than there
Mm,
is in the physical book. And I've heard people say, this
interesting.
is one of those books that it actually behooves you to have both copies. I don't have the physical copy yet because I've just not gotten around to that. I know my attention span with physical books, it's not
Right.
high. Um, but Yeah, so I actually got it on Kindle as well, and I can tell on the Kindle book it's not the same as the audio, it's not as long. So I just
Interesting.
wanted to, like, preface that for people who are like, "Yay, I really love to read," and that's amazing, that's so good. Do it in the format that works best for you, but for me and my attention span, Audible works best for me, so
I'm the same because I walk a lot and I'm busy. I'm in the
right.
car. So it allows me to go through a lot more books that way. Otherwise, if I wait till the end of the day and get into bed, I'm good for about 15 minutes and I fall asleep.
Same girl, same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so let's get into it because I have to say a lot of these concepts were not new to me, but the way he explained them was.
yes.
And even talking about what he's really talking a lot about is the law of attraction and how your thoughts create things. But here's something that blew my mind, and I knew this already, but I didn't know it. Because you can know it here, but it's when you in your head, but if you then you know it at a deep knowing.
It's
He
different when you actually embody it.
Exactly. And he
Yes.
started talking about timelines. And when you think about something, so to go back, he talks about the fact that the space-time continuum and that time is not really linear, that time is all-encompassing everything all the time. When you have a thought about something that you desire, it's already there. You've created it. So it's just there for the taking to go get it. And if you think about negative thoughts, if you think about the idea of wanting versus desire, he talks a lot about that. When you want something, you're always in the state of want.
Right.
When you go into the state of I am this, I am, then you become it. And you have to live your life in the idea of becoming it. And he talks a lot about meditation. And I'm going to use this example of how that happened in my life. And I was like, wow, how you really honestly meditate. I've wanted to write a book for years. It was a crazy ride. I would sit there blank and nothing would come. And I started visualizing myself on stage with a bestseller in my hand and people applauding and really
Mm.
feeling it at a really deep level like it had already happened. And then I surrendered it, but in every meditation, I would see it. And then 6 months later, I had to surrender how it was going to happen. 6 months later, I met a fellow who said, I'm doing a collaborative book and I want you to be part of it. And part of being part of the collaborative book is also having an opportunity to speak on stage. And he
Mm.
said, this is our sixth edition. All five have gone bestsellers. So I was like, oh my God, this is it. So I got involved with it, and the book literally just went bestseller last week. But here's the crazy part. And when that was all happening, because I had already decided that it was done, it demystified it of becoming an author. And suddenly the book that I've been wanting to read for 20 years
Mm.
literally poured out of me in 2 months. I sat there and I was like nonstop writing because I was no longer afraid. I had already owned it. I'm already a best-selling author, so there was nothing to be afraid of. It came literally through me. I'm in the editing stage, but it was like I had surrendered, and meanwhile I thought, okay, I'd already achieved it, but then spirit gave me another opportunity to get what I really wanted, but it took me through a vehicle that I would never have imagined. So I've learned more to say yes to things
Mm.
instead of going into a fear place or I'm not sure or anything like that. I don't know if you want to expand on that or if there's another part of the book that really was
I love that, and I
profound.
wanna go a little bit deeper into this
Yep.
because I think you glossed over a couple things that I'm just like, "Ooh, I really wanna go deep into that." So
Yep.
one of the things that he talks about that you mentioned is when we want something,
Yep.
we're in a state of lack, and the word "want" itself means lack. It means I don't have it. And he really outlines this very beautifully in the way that he talks about when you get up, like say you're hungry, I want a sandwich, I want food. And then you get up and you start making a sandwich, you're in a different space. You're no longer in the area of wanting because it will never come to you when you want it because you're in that state of lack. But when you move your state of being into action, getting up off the couch, going into the kitchen, you're doing something, you're actually moving towards what you desire.
Right.
And so I love how he talks a lot about and maybe not a lot, but I've heard the book now like 10 times,
Mhm.
so it's like been a lot for me, but he talks about even using the word desire when you're talking about what you want in your life, like using the word desire or using the word wishes is a better space. It has a better definition. And a
Right.
lot of times in our culture we use the word want and desire interchangeably, but they actually don't mean the same and they don't vibrate similarly and they don't mean, like they just don't have the same definition. And so when you desire something, you just like, ooh, that would feel good. And you just feel better about it. Like, whereas when you're like, want, you're like, I want it. You're just in a different space. And that was one thing when you said want, I was like, oh yes, because I've been correcting like all my clients.
Right.
Like,
No,
they're using
and
want, so
it's
no.
so true, and that's yeah, there's a whole thing about and the desire towards the end of the book he talks about desire comes from your the desire
Say
is
it
like
again because you blinked out for a minute.
oh,
Desire
desire
comes-
comes from your spirit, from your
Yes.
soul.
Yes.
That's how you know.
Yes.
That's the desire. It's like, I already have it. I want it. You already know it. You already have it. It's just now remove the boulders, remove the belief systems, and get all that stuff out of the way to achieve it.
And I would have to I can't confirm this in this moment, but I heard
Mhm.
so I would have to look up the word desire, but what I remember learning at some point, I don't believe it was in this book. In fact, I know it wasn't in this book, but it was like desire, like if you break down the word, it's like from spirit, like in Latin or something. Like that's what the
Interesting.
word is from. And so again, I would need to confirm that. Like don't get all mad at me if I'm wrong, um but I read that once and I was like, "Oh, I love that. I love that because it is that soul calling, right? Like when
Right.
we like and when it's a soul calling or it's like a spirit filled desire, it's never bad. It's never going to hurt anyone else. It's never going to harm anyone else because we are so connected because we don't want harm on other people on a soul level.
Right. And it feels good. And
Yes.
it's interesting you talked about harm because one of the other things that I talked about that he talks about, and I love this example, and it really shows, is the example of causing harm to other people and how it impacts you.
Yes.
And he used the example of being on a deserted island with another person. And imagine that it's just the two of you and you're sharing all of your things with the other person and they're sharing with you. So whatever you give comes back to you and you create this beautiful symbiotic relationship. Now, when you do something that harms someone, guess what comes back to you? Because they're not going to want to share. They're not going to
Right.
want to do anything to help you. So he created this analogy that was a microcosm of what happens in the universe, in the
Right.
world, when you do something to harm them, someone else, how it eventually comes back to you.
And I love that because I've read that in so many different places, Lisa, but what and I don't think that he talked about this necessarily, but what I've gotten from other books, other learnings that I've gone through is that it will come back to you at some point and you may not associate it with
Right.
that guy I cut off in traffic and then flipped off, or that person I was talking negatively about in that particular instance, but it will come back to you.
The
And
law of
so
karma.
this in some spaces this is called karma. I really liked he didn't actually talk about the law of attraction at all except for to say like it's actually the law of cause and effect.
Right.
And in there, that in itself is kind of mind blowing for me because I've been kind of a girl who will sing the law of attraction praises like all day long and think positive, and positive will come back to you. But this law of cause and effect actually feels more tangible to me in a lot of ways, of like if you're giving love and you're sharing knowledge and you're sharing yourself with other people from a space of love, from a space, not from an egoic I'm going to get something out of this, uh but just like from this pure heart space, it will always come back to you, and actually like tenfold, like it will always come back to you
Right.
in really powerful ways.
Yeah, and I love the way he talks about it's like when you harm someone, it comes back to you, and when you're good to someone, it comes back to you. And
Yes.
the reward, again, will come back to you in a way that you may not associate it. But no good deed, it's like every time you
Right.
do something good for someone, but the thing, the catch 22 here is you don't want to do it because you want something in return. You're
Right.
doing it from a genuine place from your heart.
Yes, and he also talks about expectation. Like expect that something amazing is going to come back to you. Like that's
Yeah.
part of this having faith, this believing, this like working with the universe. Know that something will come back to you, but one of the things that I really loved was it may not come back through that particular source. Like say I've gifted you, Lisa, like whatever it is, flowers, and I'm like holding out for you to give me flowers back. But actually, like my partner comes home one day and he brings me flowers or whatever, right? Like it can come back in multiple ways. Like if I get all hung up on the fact that, well, Lisa didn't bring me flowers, like I'm missing the point. Like the point is that the universe isn't working necessarily through that particular person. I have a colleague who I actually kind of schooled her recently. She's running a business that, doesn't always make money, but I had to remind her. I was like, you have no idea how the universe is going to bring you that money back. You have no idea how the universe is going to bring you those clients back. Like it could be through this business, she has another business. I'm like, you have no idea, and it's actually not your business. And that's not what I mean by saying that. But you know what I mean? Like it's not for you to know. It's not
Right.
for you to understand. You just need to know that it will come back.
But it's also about having a mindset of gratitude
Yes.
and knowing that the universe is always conspiring for you
Yes.
because you're the only one who's going to block it.
Right.
If you go into fear, false evidence appearing real, which he repeats quite a bit in there, then you will block it. So it's our natural state to feel joy. It's our natural state for flow to happen. And when we use those beliefs and our fears and everything else that gets in our way, we're preventing that flow. And one of the things that I'm a big proponent of, and it flows so beautifully in my life, is synchronicity.
Mm,
And a lot of people will say, oh, that's just a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. There's too much. But when he talks about when your soul desires something and your ego follows along, that's when synchronicity happens.
yes.
That's when everything moves in that direction. So it's the surrendering to that soul's desire and trusting that the universe is conspiring in your direction, and it's also in your purpose. And when everything aligns, the synchronicities start to happen, and everything aligns, and it all starts to come to you. And so when he talks about happy pocket full of money, what he really talks about is it's not so much money, it's
Yeah.
wealth and abundance. And because there are people who are very wealthy who are unhappy, there are people who have no money and who are very happy, and there's, D, all of the above. So it's really about how you choose to live your life and to be in a state of abundance, be in a state of gratitude, listen to your soul's calling and how that shows up in your life, and trust. And then the synchronicities and everything starts to flow.
Yes. And I wanna go back to you had talked about this a little bit before when you were talking about, like, the concept of time and how time actually isn't real, and, like, he goes deeper into that and how everything is happening now, and, of course, every spiritual teacher along the way, and now quantum physics is proving that as well. The only moment we have is right now. But there was this space where he talks about what you think, what you feel, all of that is important. But the first state that matters is who are you being? What are you
Yes.
being? And if you're believing, I am broke, I am sad, I am unhappy, then you are being those things. Like, I think back to like when I had COVID and I was sick and I just kept going, I'm sick, I feel like dog shit, I feel like dog shit. Like, that was my mantra. It was not helpful at all, let me tell
Exactly.
you. Um, but like all of a sudden I caught myself and I was like, what am I being right now? Like, I'm being sick. And I was able to shift myself. Thank God. Like, that helped tremendously. And then I was able to get the help that made me heal even quicker. Um, but I had to like all of a sudden be like, no, I am healthy. I am healthy. Let me be healthy. Like, let me be that state. Right. But we
Right.
have been taught that it's like almost more celebrated and
Hmm.
more socially acceptable to be in a sad state, in a poorer state, in an illness state than it is to like really own like, no, I am happy. Let me choose to be happy in this moment. Let me find what is good in this moment and what I can give
Right.
gratitude for, and look at all the things that I already have created in my life, right? Like, I've created all that is going on right now. So why don't I like give gratitude for that, and then observe, what do I want to tweak, right? Like, what do I want to like shift, and what how do I want to be? Like, what how do I want to show up in that?
Well, he talks a lot about when you talk about creating, he talks about competition and scarcity versus having a creator mode.
Right.
And that was so interesting to me because you can have someone who's wealthy who's always in competition and always needs more and more and more and has that sense of lack and need to always have more, so they never feel like they have enough even when they have more than enough,
Yeah.
versus that state of mind, the creation mind, that there's enough for everyone, because there's always it's just part of the law of the universe that whatever we desire will come to us.
Yeah.
And so that there's always enough, and that the giving state and sharing state
It will
create
always
more
come to us if we allow it
if we
to.
allow it. Yes. And
It
that's
is
the big
waiting
one.
to come to us. We
Exactly.
just have to like let down our guard and open up to receive it.
Right. And why is that so hard?
Well,
No,
that's
that you
the
think
human
about it.
condition.
These I know, but I'm raising this as a question, because these concepts seem so simple, right?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where I think we go back to the beginning of what you were saying of the mind understands that that's accurate, but can I embody that ease?
Right,
Or and I think that for human beings, I'll speak to my own experience. Sometimes the ego like wants to make it really difficult, wants to make it struggle, wants to prove that I'm worthy,
right.
right? And
Or yeah, or our programming has
right,
told us so.
right,
And it was interesting because that inspired the title of my book. In every belief
right.
is a lie. And if you look at the word belief, LIE is in the middle of it. And it talks about all of our programming and how we are basically programmed to sabotage ourselves,
Right.
to believe all of these things that we are not. And even in the book, I love what he says, but the concepts are there. But what's missing is actually, how do I release those belief systems,
Mm,
right? How do I get rid of those things? How do I get from this place of imagining and wanting something, and that's all I know? It goes back to when I to these people in the in Buddhism, or any of these speakers will say, get into the present moment. And I'm like, if I could do that, I would be doing it. I'm paying to teach you say that to me, and now you don't teach me how to do it. And that's the
Right.
problem with a lot of these information is there's so many gems, but how do you get there? And that's why it's so important that for people to understand that when it comes to your wiring and unconscious beliefs, we are completely unaware of what we believe and how these beliefs manifest in our life, where what the root cause is. And
Yeah, I think, you had mentioned this when we were on the call right before we started
right,
recording, and I loved what you said about it, which was and I found the same thing with this book. Like, clearly, I have a lot of resources in the trainings, you have a lot of resources and trainings. I think you and I know how to do this for ourselves
right,
after reading this book, but reading this book and then realizing this book doesn't actually give you the tangibles, then how
right,
to make these shifts, how to see your beliefs, how to shift them.
right.
Right? And so those are just things that, for you, our beautiful listener, like if you're looking for help with this, this is kind of the crux of what Lisa and I do.
Right.
So, if you feel called to reach out to Lisa, please do that at theeaseofbusiness.com. If you feel called to reach out to me, please do that through theeaseofbusiness.com. And we would be happy to like help you through this because it is something that a lot of people need help with.
It is. I was going from therapist to therapist to therapist. I was so depressed.
Right.
And one of the things he talks about is that it's depression is suppressed desire,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
I was like, mind blown. I
Mhm.
was in depression for many years because I was suppressing myself. I was in a place in an environment where I was unhappy and pretended to be happy because I was taking on a role that I thought I should play. And
Right.
so many of us are told you go to school and get good grades and you go to college or you get, get a trade or whatever it is and you have your home and your family and everything, you should have the perfect life. So then people feel shame around the
Mm,
fact that they did all the right things and now they're not happy and therefore they're bad people. Or if they like to think outside the box and they want to do something different, and then everyone tells them they're bad for wanting to do something unique and be themselves. So the world is constantly giving us these messages. So when he talks about all of these things and how our mind works and how we create these things, and this book is brilliant. And you're right, you need to read it several times or listen to it several times to really absorb, and it gives you the awareness. So I feel like it's like the alcoholic saying, "Hi, I'm an alcoholic," showing up at their first AA meeting. This is where you start to get the awareness of what the issues are in your life. And now that you have an idea, now what? How am I going to break this down and
right.
really fulfill my life? And he talked about the idea of fulfilling your life and what
Yeah.
it would feel like, which I loved. But
Yes.
you have the choice of how you're going to create each day. But if you have a belief that you're not worthy and deserving of happiness, how are you going to create that?
And if you believe that the universe is out to get you or God is vengeful and spiteful and vindictive and going to punish you for not doing things perfectly, those are things that need to be healed as well. Right. Because I think
Exactly.
to me, whenever I read this type of material, I think back to my own upbringing, and it took me years to unravel the damage that organized religion had done for me personally.
Right.
And so I always think that that's the first step is like when you believe that you live in a benevolent universe that loves you no matter what you do, you're always on the right path. Your success is destiny. Your success is in like it's a guarantee. Like there's no way that you can be unsuccessful,
Yep.
just and when you really can feel that in your body, then this type of work does a lot better for you. It's a lot easier, it's a lot more aligned, right?
It is. It is.
Um,
So, when you really think in terms of joy, because joy equals life, and that's our natural state.
right.
And he talks a lot about that, for us to be in that state of joy and giving. that they do to help people with addiction, is they have them go out and be of service to others. That's how
Right.
people heal. So it's like go into that state of joy and start doing things for other people just for the state of doing it, just for the sake of that, not for getting anything in return. Just do it, do that. And if that alone, and he talks a lot about meditation and the importance of this. And I will say 100%, even if you give yourself 10 minutes, you always have 10 minutes in a day. There's guided meditations. You close your eyes and breathe. There's a million different types of meditation. And even when I meditate, I don't always do it the same. But I invite you, if you get anything from this today or anything from the book, is meditating, because meditating literally connects you to your higher self, which is the instruction manual to get what you want.
Yes. I tout meditation all day long. My entire audience knows that. Like, I live, breathe, die by meditation. He talks a lot. I will name that the narrator mispronounces Vipassana consistently through the entire book, which kind of drove me
Is that
nuts.
what he was saying?
That's what he was trying to say, Vipassana meditation, which I've done multiple times. So I'm like, ooh, nails on a chalkboard. You're saying it wrong. But anyway, that aside, there's so many different types of meditation. There's passive meditations where you're really trying to empty your mind. There's dynamic meditations where you're doing kind of like energy work, or you're listening to a guided meditation. And I always am encouraging of start where you are. For me, it was like downloading an app. For me, it was Insight Timer.
Yeah.
10 years ago, or whenever it was, I started 8, 9 years ago, something like that. And like listening to guided meditations, and they were 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I would do a little journaling in the morning about just visioning how my day was going to go. And that was literally how I started. And so it can be really simple. It took me like 10 minutes every morning, 5 minutes of meditation, like 5 minutes of journaling. And that shifted so much for me so quickly that it's kind of stupid why I don't do it still. But, and what I'm saying is like the journaling, the daily journaling, because it was so powerful. But yeah, I think that there's tools that are not necessarily talked about in this book other than the meditation, but it does not take a lot. You don't have to sit for an hour or two every day.
Yeah, everyone, so many people like, I can't meditate. My brain is always swimming. Well, that is awareness of what is going on in your brain. So you're like, oh wow, it's that cluttered. And that is part of meditation. I actually, if you mention Insight Timer, I recorded a 9-minute meditation that's on Insight Timer. If you look up Lisa Schermerhorn, you get it, you can get that one.
Love
But
it.
yeah, it's all those apps have some really, really great meditations for you. There's no excuse. You always have 10 minutes.
You can
And
even do it if you're sitting on the toilet. Like, it does not have to be
shower.
hard, right? Oh my
Yeah.
god, I get so much insight in the shower. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The water is golden for me. But um
Walking in nature.
yes.
Walking in nature, sitting down at the roots of a tree and putting your back against a tree. All of those, nature is one of those beautiful places that brings in insight. It really does. So it
For
doesn't
sure.
have to look a certain way. It's just important for you to really go inward and find out what's really there, because we get programmed and we are told by so many people who we are supposed to be and what we're supposed to believe, and we take it on as true, and then we get set up. And he really gives you a guide of how we work at an atomic level,
Mm.
how our
Yep.
thoughts work at an atomic level, and how we really create these thoughts and beliefs. And it's a great place to start. And I was just checking my notes to see if there was anything else, but we choose what is true. We give many meaning to everything. And I saw Selma Hayek talk about this, and this is a really funny example. She said, if you don't speak Spanish and I start cursing at you in Spanish, but I'm smiling, so you have no idea what I'm saying to you. You might even laugh at me, but you have not been able to give it meaning because you have no idea what I've just said to you. And now if I say those things to you in English, all of a sudden your feelings are hurt because you gave what I said meaning.
Right.
If you laughed at what I said at the same time that I did when I was just yelling at you in Spanish, how different would your life be? We take on so much and we block ourselves. So I invite, these listeners here to please, if you ever get a chance to read this book, or even just, I'm sure, because I don't have the physical book, I'll do the audio, but this is one of those books I think you could pick it up and open it anywhere and
Yeah.
read one page and get a gem.
Yeah. And I downloaded the Kindle version and I'm looking at it. I'm wondering if it's similar to the physical copy, but it actually has like some journaling questions in the back and like a study
Oh,
guide more like type thing. So I'm going to be working through that now that I have that
yeah,
version. But I think the fact of the matter is, Lisa, we've already been talking for 35 minutes and we could talk about this particular book, I think, for 4 hours, like
yeah.
not an exaggeration.
I can't believe that. Where did the time go? I feel
It
like I just said
it
hello to
goes
you.
really fast and that's the thing, like, I'm like, "Oh my god, I could talk about this and this and this and this," but I just really wanna invite people into listening to this book for yourself, even if it's I love to listen while I'm in the car and driving, that's, like, really good listen time for me. I also like to listen when I'm working out or in the morning.
Yeah,
There's just so many ways that you can digest this book. You can do it like Lisa did, she, like, went to like 1.5 times. You can actually speed up
speed it up.
the speed on the book if you need to. um, but yeah, this book is Happy Pocket Full of Money, Infinite Wealth and Abundance in the Here and Now by David Cameron Gikandi. And I just really, really welcome you into so many nuggets, so many ahas. It's so deep and so rich. And not only for money, but like Lisa was saying, for health, for relationships, for success, for career, like all of it, it's all the same. Like everything, is interchangeable in these lives. So,
It is. It's
yeah.
completely. That's why I say it's really, if you read it because you want to be more successful, it's a great book to have, but you're going to get so much more than that because
And if
it's
you
not about the money.
and if you want to be more successful, help someone else become more successful.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that whole law of cause and effect. Help
Yeah.
someone else knowing that it's going to come back to you and maybe not from that person. And that's okay. The
Yeah.
universe has got your back.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lisa, do you want to introduce what we're talking about, what the book is for next month?
Yeah, I can't believe that we haven't done this book yet. It's one of my favorites. There we go, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I just saw, actually, this is an homage to him. He just retired. He's not doing any workshops anymore. He
Interesting.
was just in Sedona. I saw that he did his last one. But his son has continued on and he has done the fifth agreement. I think we talked about. I haven't read that, but I just ordered it. So, but The Four Agreements is one of my favorite books. And one of my favorite things that I've taken from it is be impeccable with your word.
Hmm.
And when you can live in alignment with who you are, when you know your values, when you speak your truth, that's also then connects to how you get that pocket full of money, happy pocket full of money. It's about being in alignment with who you are.
Yes. Yes. Love that. So I'm really excited about this book because it is kind of a classic. And
Yeah,
I was surprised as well, but I was like, I don't think we have talked about this. But yes, the Four Agreements, even if you've read this book before, it's a really quick, simple read. It goes
yeah,
really fast. But there's a lot of nuggets in there. And even if you've read it before, it's so good to revisit. I know people who revisit this book every single year.
yeah,
So I just really want to invite you into that. So we will be back here live on Facebook and YouTube at the Ease of Business podcast on Tuesday, the third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern. So it will be Tuesday, June 21st. And if you want to know more about this podcast, if you want to find all the places that we are, the easiest place to go to find out more about Lisa, more about myself, and all the places that this podcast can be found or any other episodes is the easeofbusiness.com. So again, the easeofbusiness.com. So we thank you so much for being here with us. We're really excited to hear how much you loved this book and what you've learned out of it. And if you have any questions and want to reach out to us, or maybe you have an amazing book that you've written that you want us to like read and showcase on a future episode, we'd love to hear about that. Or if you just have maybe a golden nugget of a book that you're like, you haven't talked about this and this is a must talk about, we would love to hear that too. So again, you can find us at theeaseofbusiness.com, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
This has been the Ease of Business podcast for enlightened entrepreneurs, hosted by Lisa Schermerhorn and Celeste Hartwell. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find us at theeaseofbusiness.com, on our Facebook page, and on YouTube at the Ease of Business podcast. We stream live on YouTube and Facebook every third Tuesday of the month. And we'd love it if you'd like to read the book that we're doing next and join in the conversation live at 7 p.m. Eastern. See you then.